Great. So I have picked up a topic which might seem like a car topic, which is BYD. Today we are going to talk about a car company. It's not really a story about cars. It's a story about how a small battery workshop in Shenzhen, a workshop run by a 29-year-old engineer who did not even had a driving license at that point of time, quietly became one of the most important geopolitical weapons of the 21st century. The car you are looking at on this slide is BYD Yangwang U9. As of 2025, it is officially the fastest production car on the planet, faster than a Bugatti, faster than a Koenigsegg, faster than anything which has ever built, which is road legal, and it's Chinese. Hold on to that thought. We'll be exploring that part further, but let's start with some groundbreaking facts. For about 100 years, the global car industry was dominated by three countries. It was Germany, Japan, and the US. And out of these three countries came the names that define the modern brands of driving, which is Toyota, Volkswagen, Mercedes, Ford, Honda, BMW, Porsche. These aren't just companies. They were the pride of entire nations. They were the backbone of entire countries. Germany without Volkswagen is not Germany. Similarly, Japan without Toyota is not Japan. But in the space of about 3 years, it has been a bloodbath. Look at the numbers on the slide. Mercedes, the three-pointed star, the most aspirational badge on the planet, watched its China sales fall by 28% in a single year. Why? Because Chinese brand like BYD, Xiaomi started making luxury cars that were far better and cheaper than Mercedes. And whatever they were offering was too less for Chinese at that point of time. Mercedes eventually lost its grip on the biggest market in the world, on their biggest market for the world. So for perspective, you see one more number here, which is minus 26 billion, the loss for Stellantis. It might seem like just a number, but just to give you a little bit of perspective, 26 billion is more than what Reliance India's whole profit is in nearly 2.5 years. 26 billion is roughly what TCS plus HDFC Bank make in profit together in a full year. Stellantis lost that much money in 12 months. Porsche, 92% drops in profit, almost the entire bottom line gone in a year. Porsche had bet on everything going electric car, and they publicly admitted that the strategy for them wasn't working at all. Volkswagen had announced almost 50,000 job cuts in Germany by 2030, and this is not a strategy. This, for them, becomes a survival plan at this point. Notice the headline at the top of the slide. We started by saying the era of Western auto giant is ending. I believe that it's not ending, it has already ended. It's past tense. The fight is already over, and now we are just watching the cleanup. And behind every single one of these blows, the same name keeps coming up, which is BYD. So here is a video. I'll quickly show it to you.
Although there's competitors now ramping up, and as you're familiar with BYD, which is also on the West Coast, I think they're ramping up production of their electric vehicles. Why do you laugh? BYD is trying to compete. Why do you laugh?
Have you seen their car?
I have seen.
This is from Bloomberg TV, 2011. The interviewer asked Elon Musk about the simple question that what does he think about Chinese company called BYD? Did you see the tonality which Elon responded? The body languages, it shows that, oh, they are not our competitor. This is a joke. Why are you even asking this? That was 2011. Today, BYD sells more electric cars than anyone on the planet. More than Tesla, more than Western car makers. And we'll come to this in a few slides. So today we are going to answer 4 major questions. First one, how did a battery workshop dismantle the global car industry in under a decade? Question number 2, what three decisions did Wong, the founder, make that competitors structurally cannot copy? Not did not copy, they cannot copy this. So there's a difference. Question number three, why is BYD not actually a BYD story? There is a part nobody talks about, which is BYD is the visible piece. There's a much bigger picture behind it. And Beijing is running that machine right now in about 10 other industries. And the last, how is BYD doing in India? Because the Indian story is the inverse of every other market when we look at it, and specifically when we look at automotive. So in the end, we will try to answer what this means for us sitting in India in 2026. So let's get into this. So the mistake most people make is that they think this is a story about Chinese brand winning in China. And if they were true, that would already be bad news for Mercedes and Volkswagen. But at least they'll still have their home turf in Europe and US. The reality is much worse. BYD is not just dominating Beijing and Shanghai, it's planting its flag on every single continent at the time. They are there in Southeast Asia, Europe, Latin America, Middle East, Australia, Africa, everywhere except the US, which has officially blocked them on national security grounds, similar to TikTok. And even there, the American knows that it's a holding pattern, not a victory. So, and the pattern is almost similar everywhere. Wherever BYD shows up, the competitors starts falling apart. Sometimes it's taking months, sometimes just taking weeks. Let's focus on the first part, Southeast Asia. This is where the shift had been the most brutal because Southeast Asia was a Japanese fortress, Toyota, Honda, Mitsubishi, Mazda, for 40 years. If you bought a car in Thailand or Indonesia or Malaysia, you bought a Japanese car, and that was just the default. In Thailand, BYD took almost 40% of the electric vehicle market in 18 months. That's faster than most companies can launch a single product. In Singapore, 1 out of every 5 new cars sold last year was BYD. 20% of the entire Singapore market. Malaysia, BYD became the #1 best-selling electric brand in 2024, ahead of every Japanese, Korean, and German competitors. And the consequence, in the Japanese Asian column in the right, Mazda had cut production in the region by 60%. Mitsubishi has just shut down its factory in Thailand entirely. The factory is closed. Workers are gone. A region that had been Japanese stronghold for 40 years is flipped in 3. Now think about that for a second. It's not just 40 years of just reputation. It's a relationship building. It's dealership networks. It's after sales service. It's brand loyalty. It's government partnership. 3 years of BYD that's all it took for them to ace this. Second one, Europe was supposed to be safe. Europeans invented the car, right? They built the most aspirational brands on the planet. The thinking was, okay, BYD will dominate Asia, fine, but Europe is sacred. Europeans will not buy Chinese car. Wrong. Chinese brand now account for more than 11% of the European EV sales, and that share is growing every single quarter. Look at what's happening to the European champions now. Renault, first net loss in 5 years, margin shrinking because of the Chinese pressure. The CEO has openly said that they expect margins to keep shrinking because the price war the Chinese have started, they no longer can win. We talked about Stellantis. Audi was untouchable luxury brand in European Union. They were untouchable in racing. They were the people who invented rally for the first time. They were the people who invented all-wheel drive. They're losing customers in China and losing market share at their home turf in Europe at the same time, both fronts. And now the most telling moments of all, Frederick, the German chancellor, he had to fly to Beijing with 30 CEOs behind him, not to sign new contracts, not to celebrate a partnership either, to please Xi Jinping to ease the pressure on German industry. Now, 20 years ago, that would have been unthinkable. The Chancellor of Germany, the country that exports cars, the way Saudi Arabia exports oil, flying to Beijing asking Chinese to please go a little easier on us. This is the real inversion of power which we are watching in real time. And then there is a place nobody expected, Brazil. In a single year, BYD took 72% of Brazilian electric vehicle market. 72%. That's not market share, that's monopoly. But the detail I love the most is on the right. BYD opened its Brazilian factory on the same site Ford had abandoned in the state of Bahia. Same workers, same supplier base, same state, same physical building, just a different flag on the building. And that's the metaphor for the whole decade. That Americans built the infrastructure, they walked away, then Chinese walked in, and same plant, same workers, different flags. We see this happening in Mexico. A part of this you can see in Israel, Norway, Egypt, and the pattern is repeating itself. So now the larger question comes, how? How does a Chinese company that most people, even I, couldn't name them 5 years ago? In fact, the first time I heard about BYD was in Project Kia when I was working in Kia in 2023. And BYD meant build your dreams. The name itself sounded funny for me. The name itself sounds something which is chat GPT at that point of time. And cheap labor does not explain it. Plenty of other Chinese brands have the same labor cost advantage, and they went absolutely nowhere. To understand what BYD built, we need to understand who built it. His name is Wang. 1995, Wang was a 29-year-old engineer. He borrowed about 40,000 from his cousin, rented a small workshop in Shenzhen to start making rechargeable batteries by hand. At that point of time, Japanese owned the global battery market, specifically Sony, Panasonic, and Sanyo. They had fully automated production lines that cost tens and millions of dollars to set up. Wang could not afford that. So he did something that Japanese could never thought of. He decomposed each automated setup into series of smaller manual steps that human could do. To just give you an example, it required a whole bigger safety room at that point of time to create batteries. What he did was a simple solution, and you can read about later. He just made a box with two gloves. And now you do not need to invest in a larger area. You just put your hands in the gloves and you can manufacture the batteries there. He cut the cost by almost 80%. The idea is so simple and yet so genius. Yeah. And in the same year, the 2003, Wang did something nobody even understood. He took that money, he bought a bankrupt sales-owned car factory in the middle of nowhere. His own investors tried to stop him. BYD stock dropped by 2.7 billion Hong Kong dollars in 2 days. The Chinese business press called it a joke. The battery guy walking in one of the most capital-intensive industries on the planet. And to top it off, Wang did not even have a driving license at that point of time. His logic was simple. The future of the car, he believed, wasn't going to be the engine. It was going to be battery, and nobody on earth knew batteries the way he did. Everyone else was trying to figure out how to electrify a car. Wang was trying to figure out how to build a car around something which he had already mastered. It took him almost 15 years of humiliation before the rest of the world understood what he was actually doing. And during those 15 years, while journalists laughed and Musk was mocking him on the live television, Wang made 3 decisions that would quietly change everything. First, vertical integration. Second, the boring bed. Third, the blade battery. Let's go to the first one. This one is the structural move, the one that competitors literally cannot copy at this point of time, even if they wanted to. Look at the left column, the outside supplier model. This is how Tesla works. This is how Volkswagen works. This is how Toyota works. This is how even Tata works. Tesla buys its batteries from Panasonic. Volkswagen buys chips from NVIDIA. Toyota buys motors and glass and displays from a network of hundreds of outside suppliers. The only thing they really build in-house is the software and the brand. The advantage of this model is pretty obvious, that it's capital light. You don't need to own everything. You just assemble. The disadvantage of this model is that when one link in the chain breaks, uh, the whole chain is going to break. We saw this in 2021 during the global chip shortage. Tesla had to pause production. Volkswagen had to pause production too. Ford lost billions. Now look at BYD, right column, everything in house. Batteries their own. They literally invented their own batteries. Semiconductors, motors and power electronics, glass, headlights, dashboard software, everything their own. Lithium mines in Tibet, Chile, Argentina, their own. Even the iron ore for the steel, their own. So when the chip shortage hit in 2021 and the entire global auto industry was paralyzed, you see a lot of reports of even in India that Mahindra is delaying their cars. BYD just turned up the dial on its own chip factories and kept delivering. When lithium prices exploded, they were already digging it up themselves in Tibet and in South America. Every crisis that hurts their competitors made them stronger. And this is not a coincidence. This is the design itself. And this is something which Western brands can't copy anymore. Second decision, and this is one of the interesting one, because while Tesla and Silicon Valley and whole of the America was fighting on the fact that BHEV don't have a future. Are they even electric cars? They literally invested in that, and it wasn't a compromise. It was their own strategy itself. In California, there's a Tesla supercharger in every 3 miles. So it made sense for them to have EVs. It made sense for them to invest totally in electric vehicles. In most of the China, outside Beijing, Shanghai, charging infrastructure was scarce. Driving an hour out of Shanghai and you couldn't find a charger. So pure EV is actually useless to most Chinese consumers. But a plug-in hybrid, that worked anywhere. Charged at home, drive electric most days, and on the day if you wanted to do 400 kilometers, the petrol engine gets it. No range anxiety at all, no infrastructure dependency. It's just simple, it just worked. This was something which Toyota also tried. They are the one who literally invented this tech, but failed because they could not understand if they want to position themselves as someone who is stick to ICE engines, someone who wants to make hybrids, or someone who actually wants to transition to electric vehicles. This single decision gave BYD access to roughly 500 million Chinese consumers that Tesla could never structurally touch. Tesla was selling pure EVs to the top 50 million urban Chinese. BYD was selling hybrids to the next 500 million. 500 million, right? It sounds like a big number. Let me give you a little bit of context. 500 million people is roughly combining the population of Uttar Pradesh, Maharashtra, and Bihar. 500 million people is about 1 in every 3 Indian. 500 million people is more than the entire population of European Union. It's about the size of Instagram's daily user base and approximate user base. So if you look at the chart on the right, by 2024, BYD annual sales had crossed Tesla, and by today, they have sold almost 1.6 million units versus Tesla's 1.22 million. And when I say 1.6 million units, those are just the hybrids there. If we account for every sale which they have done, it's far, far, far larger. And let's come to the third point, the one that closed the trap for them. In 2020, BYD released what they actually call the Blade battery. Now, this presentation, I'll be taking 10 more minutes. There are a couple of slides which I want to cover, and there is a lot of content, so allow me 10 more minutes to. But in 2020, BYD released what they called a Blade battery. It used a different chemistry that everyone else was using. The world has standardized on NCM, which is nickel, cobalt, and magnesium. That's what Tesla used. That's what every Western EV used. NCM is higher density, so you get more range per kilometer. So in line terms, NCM looks better. BYD went the other way. They used LFP. lithium iron phosphate. Look at the table. LFP has lower energy density, about 10 to 15% lower. So you are giving up some range. That's a trade-off, and it's a real one when we are talking about EVs. But it's 20 to 30% cheaper. It doesn't use cobalt, and cobalt is mostly mined in Democratic Republic of Congo under conditions that, frankly, no Western brands want to be associated with. So LFP is cleaner, it's cheaper, and it lasts much longer. NCM batteries are lasts for or claims to be last for about 1,000 to 1,500 charge cycles. LFP lasts 3,000. So your battery lasts the lifetime of the car instead of needing a replacement halfway. And the most important one is it doesn't catch fire. Initially, if you poke a needle or something pricky onto the battery, it would blast. What did was they came on a public platform and hosted a whole press conference where they put a nail inside the battery and nothing happened. So this was safe. Safe is also a biggest keyword when we are talking about EVs, because safety is one of the major concerns which we saw in the EV market itself 5 years ago. The cars were blasting. People were scared. We had a lot of instances related to Ola in India. So BYD made a chemistry choice that gave up a, they made a choice that, okay, we'll choose this instead of a longer range cars. And then comes the ultimate flex. 4 years after Blade Battery launched, Tesla, the company whose CEO had laughed at BYD on television in 2021, started buying batteries from BYD. The company that Musk publicly mocked, the company he could not keep a straight face about, is now the company supplying the batteries inside Tesla. In total fairness, they reportedly stopped this arrangement very quickly, but the point was made. Now let's come to one bigger factor. It's an instrument, and China is the player. And it's a great story, vertical integration, boring hybrid breakthrough story, but it's not the full story, not even close. From day one, BYD had been planning the game, but nobody else on the field was allowed to play. And to understand that game, you need to stop thinking about BYD as a company, start thinking about BYD as an instrument. The player is China, obviously. Between 2015 and 2020 alone, BYD received roughly 4.3 billion in direct subsidies from the Chinese state. 4.3 billion. That is approximately 36,000 crores. If I anchor it to India, Tata Motors, their total 2024 profit was 31,000 crores, which is less than 4.3. L&T, we know L&T, right? Their profit in 2024 was 15,000 crores. So basically, they got a funding which was 2.5 times the companies like L&T combined. In 2016, what they also did was they poached a star designer from Audi. The subsidies was given by Beijing, and they were so big that they were bigger than the entire net profit for the year. Without the Chinese government writing checks, BYD wasn't profitable in 2016. It was a loss making. The state turned the loss into a profit. And this wasn't just done by subsidy. They got free land for factories. They got zero interest loans from state-owned banks, tax breaks on R&D, guaranteed public contracts for buses, taxes, and taxes. Subsidies were directly handed on to the buyers, and it's reported that whenever a consumer was buying a car from BYD in China, they were making 2,000 to 4,000 of public money per vehicle for that entire era. So here's another thing which nobody talks about. BYD is not just a side project; it's the part of the national industrial strategy. In 2015, China announced something called as Made in China. Made in China 2025. The premise was we'll move from being the world's low-cost factory to being the global leader in advanced manufacturing across 10 strategic industries by 2025. And those 10 industries are listed on the slide. Every single one of these 10 in an industry is what West used to dominate. Every single one of these 10 is being run on the same playbook: state subsidies, vertical integration, patient capital, 20-year time horizons. And Western companies operating without that backing cannot just compete. It was announced in 2015. After 2018, the Chinese government quickly stopped using the name in public because it had started to scare the West, and it was used as ammunition by Trump's administration. So the name went away. The plan never did. So if you want to know which industries are next on the list, you don't need to guess. Beijing has actually published it. It's called the 15-year uh, 15-year plan. It's publicly available. I highly recommend that once you skim through it to get an idea of how they are shaping everything. Now let's come to a one broader question itself. BYD is failing in India, and these are the numbers. If you read the numbers, they do sound like a success story. 3.2% EV market share, sure. Fourth largest EV brand in India, 90% year-on-year growth. If these numbers were given by Citroën or companies who had recently entered India, it would be a success. So I want to open the floor for a minute and get your opinions of why do you think BYD is failing? We saw them dominate every other country. Why not India? Anyone? And take a wild guess. No one? Tariffs, import duties.
Is it because of India-China tensions?
Yes, you guys are almost right. It is because of that. So notice that no one of you said range anxiety, build quality complaints, service network gap, price mix calculation, because they are acing it. They are acing it. Every reviewer on the internet is a fan of BYD's car. Every enthusiast wants to buy a BYD car. Look at the cockpit itself. It looks like a spaceship, looks like an aeroplane spaceship. The center console display, it moves to portrait also. If you look on the bottom right of the picture itself, there are little strings. These are guitar strings which are there in the car. So when you place your bottle there, it generates a sound there. They have gone full in terms of innovation here. They did everything which they could do, and consumers actually like it. So, and I'm not going to deny there are real consumer issues. Range anxiety is a genuine concern in India. There have been some mishappenings with their service network itself, but that really tells the story. If you want to buy a BYD right now, it's going to cost you around 40 to 45 lakhs. The same price segment where Fortuner or Legender comes in. If you look at the brand appeal and everything, Toyota is a front runner. But the moment you start comparing the spec sheet, the features, the tech it offers, it's far ahead. So there are three major structural blocks that Indian government has put in BYD's path. First is rejected investment. In 2023, Indian government formally rejected BYD's proposal of 1 billion to set up a manufacturing plant with a local partner. This is important because BYD is in the countries where they could go and manufacture their own units. So second is geopolitical security. You all know there has been a heightened border tension in the recent years. So that's why India has tightened security on investments from the neighboring countries. Third is the import. BYD lacks full local manufacturing. It has to rely on CPU, which is completely built unit, which is just imported in the car itself, or semi-knockdown units, which is parts of it are imported here and assembled here. And under current rules, imports are also capped at 2,500 units per model per year until you meet the strict local standards. So that means they cannot sell a single model for more than 2,500 units, which is a huge blocker for them. So when you look at India's number and compare them to Thailand or Brazil, the gap is not because BYD's product is weaker. It's because India is taking a different stance on its completely. So what we saw from this is that disruption rarely arrives looking polished. It almost starts as something that looks absolutely ridiculous. Who thought that a 29-year-old battery guy will end up making the biggest car brand in the world? And that ridiculous bet which he took made him the largest EV maker today. So here's the lesson for India, for us, for everyone, that don't judge tomorrow's infrastructure by today's demand. In most of the cases, yes, we read the signals, but it's important for us in our projects also to understand where the market is headed in terms of next 5 to 10 years. And that should be guided by a whole lot of readings from what other people are doing, what other industries are doing, what is China doing, what is US doing, what are other brands doing, what are these are some things which I feel has become must in today's age, because most of the times when you fuse cross domain knowledge is when you are getting something as a stronger area, as a stronger innovation area where we can tap in. And yeah, that's pretty much it. This is their fastest car. They had to go to Germany to prove that this is their fastest car. In their home turf itself, they broke every record. His fastest car is also innovatively so strong that if the car sees a pothole, it jumps. The suspension jumps before approaching the pothole itself. So apart from this, I know I took 30 minutes also in this, but there is a huge data of research which I have regarding this. So anybody who is interested in this more, I have a couple of slides also, which I have just skipped for now. But yeah, I can share the presentation later so that you can go into details of this.